Hi folks, welcome to this recording on another quiz that you had in a chapter in order to calculate the final cash balance in the current assets section. In this quiz, you'll notice that you did start with money in the checking account at the Bank of Montreal, so that amount will always be included in your own corporate cash balance on your balance sheet in the current assets section. Now, you also have an item here in installment receivables of $46,000. You remember from class an installment receivable, and in this case due in 2013, it's not going to be a current asset. It's going to be a non-current asset, so it will not go in your current asset cash balance account. But the question does ask you to figure out what your current asset section cash balance is. But if it's not going there, where would it go? So because this account isn't going there, you remember it's a type of trade receivable, so it's going to go in the long-term asset section as a trade receivable. So if you check down below, we have it in here as a non-current asset installment receivable due in 2013, and it's long-term or non-current because it's not due until after 1 year after the current balance sheet date, which in our question is December 31st, 2011. However, notice that the overdraft, because it exists at the same account, at the same bank that your checking account has a balance in, you'll remember that the overdraft in this case is not set up as a liability. Because it's at the same bank, we can net it or offset it against the existing balance in that same bank. So now we're going to deduct that $5,000 in order to help us come up with our current asset balance for cash. Now, we can scroll through here to see what else goes into cash, but if you just accept the solution, we can see that your current asset cash balance is going to be $195,000. Well, that's because we have the solution, but we have to make sure that we go through all of these other items from 4 to 10 to see if they don't go in cash, current asset cash, where do they go? In this case, we do have a separate cash fund of $100,000, but it's restricted for the retirement of long-term debt. Because it's going to retire long-term debt when that debt retires, and that debt is by definition long-term, we know that that item is going to be part of restricted cash. But the restricted cash, because it's settling a non-current debt or a non-current liability, it too is non-current. So we're going to include another item here in the restricted cash balance. So this would almost be like a non-current asset like cash. But because here we were looking for the current asset balance for cash, we can't include it here because it's going to be settling a non-current liability, which is your long-term debt. Now, in number 5, we have a money market fund that was purchased in the same year for which we're doing the statements for $15,000, and it has no checking privileges. Because it has no checking privilege, and it matures on September 1st, 2012, we know one thing. It's not going to be part of your cash balance because it's got no checking privileges. But it is considered to be, because it matures at September 1st, 2012, it's within a year, but it's over 3 months. So from the date of purchase, so therefore it's going to be a short-term investment. So where do we have it? Number 5, as in this section here, it's a current asset, but it's a short-term investment. Now, if I had said to you that it matures with any date within 30 days or within 3 months of this December 21st date, so let's say I said it matures January 31st, 2012, or even February 15th, 2012, then it would be different. Then it would be considered a cash equivalent. But because it's over 3 months, given the difference between the date of purchase and the date that it matures, now we know that this will be a short-term asset or short-term investment. Okay, now we have a term deposit of $20,000 purchased from the Bank of Montreal on December 21st, and it matures in 30 days. So again, because it matures in 30 days, this is not a short-term investment. This is a cash equivalent. So we have it here as a current asset, but it's a cash equivalent because its maturity is within 30 days of the date it was purchased. We also have here a compensating balance of $20,000 that's kept in the Bank of Montreal. Well, that's already included in your $200,000. That's just like a minimum deposit we have to keep on hand. So therefore, you don't have to do anything with that. That's already in your cash balance, right? So we're not doing anything. So what I've done here is I've just made a note, or I haven't put anything in here, but I have made a note here that the compensating balance is already in cash, so it's already part of the $200,000. So that's just a minimum deposit requirement. So it wouldn't go in here. It's already included in here. Now, it says here that we have a compensating or a post-dated check, that was dated February 1st, 2012 for $10,000, and it's from a customer, and it's given to us as an advance on work to be performed next month, but we can't actually cash it yet. All right. So the customer is giving us a check on work, but it's not going to be completed for quite some time. But the fact of the matter is it's dated February the 1st, 2012. We're here at December 31st, 2011. So we know that we can't cash that check yet, right? Because it's dated February 1st, 2012. So we can't do anything with it at December 31st. So what is it called? Because we can't cash it, it doesn't represent anything that we can record as a financial transaction. So it just sits in the strong box or in the vault until February 1st comes around and we can cash it. So this is an item that's not going to be classified anywhere. It can't be cashed, so it just sits in your safety in your vault or in some kind of a box until it can be cashed. Now we also have an NSF check, okay, insufficient or non-sufficient funds check that was from the Bank of Montreal. It was returned to us, and a customer obviously sent us a check. We tried to cash that check, but our bank wouldn't do it. The Bank of Montreal being our bank, they wouldn't cash it. So what does that really represent to us? We would go back to the customer and say, hey, give us our money. Your check bounced. So therefore, it stays as a current asset and an account receivable. And we also, for this last item, we have an unamortized bond discount on a bond liability that's due March the 1st, 2012. Well, don't forget the unamortized bond discount. It's attached to a bond liability due March the 1st, 2012, so a liability is a debt. So the unamortized bond discount is attached to the bond liability, so you can set it up as a current liability, specific or contra liability, as an unamortized bond discount, but it's certainly not a current asset, right? The idea here is that some students might have said, well, I can treat it as a contra account to the bond liability, and I can include it as a reduction in the bond payable. Well, that's true. And we discussed that in class as being a possibility as well. So some of you might have just recorded it as a current liability as part of the balance in the bond payable. Remember, the bond payable would be its face value less the unamortized discount to give you the bond payable at carrying value. So I would accept if you said a current liability and bond payable here as well, because it really does represent the face value less the unamortized discount, which that $15,000 is your unamortized discount. So you could say it's part of that bond payable. That's okay too. I would accept that. So this concludes our review on our little quiz where you had to calculate the current asset balance in cash and account for any items that would not be included as part of that current asset cash balance.